I was struck by the comment in your testimony, and I'm going to quote it: "The Air Force is currently 511 fighter pilots short of the total manning requirement, and our projections indicate this deficit will continue to grow to approximately 834 by 2022. That sounds pretty alarming.
It is alarming, Senator. It's one of great concern for our Air Force. It's one that we're putting a lot of attention and focus on. On the one hand, we've got the airlines that are hiring about 3,500 fighter pilots every month. Our focus is increasing the pipeline, bringing pilots in and maximizing the UPT that we have to ramp up those numbers. We also have to look at absorption, being able to season those fighter pilots and working total force requirements to put fighter pilots in cockpits to be able to do that seasoning. And then we're working very closely on retention issues as well to try our best to maintain the fighter pilots that we do have in the service as we speak.
We tend to be focusing here on all the hardware and the bright, shiny objects and all the stuff that people find glamorous about the Air Force. But if you don't have enough good pilots, all this stuff is worthless, right?
We're an Air Force and we need pilots, and we need all of our pilots are good pilots. We need fighter pilots as well.
I may have overstated it somewhat, but that's the way it looks like to.
It's a big focus item for our Air Force. I'm 100% in agreement with you. We're working this hard.
And let me ask you, what can we do to help you with either the recruitment or the training or the retention, whatever it is? Maybe you have some recommendations.
So, Senator, we're gonna bring forward a plan that will both increase production. We think we need to stand up 2 more fighter training units that train students out of undergraduate pilot training and turn them into fighter pilots. And we're gonna work with the Guard and Reserve to ask them to absorb more of our active duty young pilots into their squadrons. And then we'll have to increase our UPT production also to be able to make that happen. We think if we do that, we can start to address that gap. And next year, we'll bring you a plan. We're going to make it fit into our budget, but there'll be something else that falls out, and we'll bring you a plan next year to address it.
Well, if I may just suggest, with all respect, I think to have a plan next year is great, but it seems to me if we're expecting a deficit of 834 by 2022, the sooner the better.
Yes, sir. So in the short term, we'll use the bonus and the tools that we have to try to retain as many of those pilots as we can. We know that their readiness is a big part of that. To keep fighter pilots, you need to give them a chance to be good at their jobs and be ready. And we're working to fund the requirements or readiness as we go through. And we also think that there's a reduction in tempo that's a part of that. We need to give them more time to train and more time to have a full career in the airplane. And then we're going to work to make sure we absorb every person we can that leaves active duty into the reserve or the Guard so that we hold on to that experience.
I think that's a very important point. And if I may just make a request from someone who is a supporter, not a critic, that if you could give us a plan, even if it's only a chalkboard plan, even if it's only scribbles or whatever, it's not a final finished product, but just so we can reassure ourselves that we're on track to fill this gap.
Yes, sir. We'll be happy to work through that with you and your staff and tell you what we're planning to do.
Let me just quickly ask Lieutenant General Bunch, I think you were at last week's Armed Services Committee hearing when Secretary James testified that the Air Force believes that foreign military sales will protect unit costs from increasing as a result of some of the cuts in the F-35, so that, in effect, there'll be no increase in cost per unit despite the reduction to 43 instead of 48 in the procurement in F-35s. I asked the question, where are those foreign military sales going to go? I think that Secretary James said she would produce more information about it. Maybe you have some more information now.
So, sir, I was not at the hearing, but I did hear the question. We are not going to pay an increase. The gap of us moving our aircraft out of the FIDEP was filled by the Navy, the Marine Corps, our partner nations, and foreign military sales. And I thought I'd written down the 3 nations that we were doing the foreign military sales with, but I don't have them on my notes, so I apologize for that we would attribute, and we have other ones that are there, but I'll get you that information, sir. I apologize.
Senator, the partners that are buying aircraft are the United Kingdom, Italy, the Netherlands, Australia, Norway, and Turkey. Denmark and Canada are still making up their mind, and they may move in. And on the FMS side, it's Israel, Japan, and Korea. And the combination of all those partners, plus the Navy and the Marine Corps, the program manager has assured us that the price will stay
So
very close to
there'll
the
be an
same.
increase somewhere in that group.
The quantity is
compensate
big
for
enough
that.
that taking that small amount down won't have much of an impact. And then every year, each lot, the price is going down, and that also figures into it too, that the lots that are being negotiated now are at a lower price than the previous lots.
If you could, or maybe she or somebody, get back to me with a somewhat more definitive answer. I understand those are the nations that are buying planes. I know that the Marine Corps and the Navy are buying planes also, but if you could just give me a rationale and an explanation, I'd appreciate it. Thank you very much.
So we'll take that. That's to me.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.